what's the top issue in this Senate election from your vantage point?
The future of the U.S. economy, because we have policies in place that have been long-standing. This has not been something that's taken place over the last 20, 30 years. These are policies that have been in place for 100 years in America, and the chickens have now come home to roost. In the Wall Street Journal today, you have a picture of the dollar chart declining. It looks like a stock that's fallen out of bed like Enron. We cannot have a nation that's prospering with a declining currency. No nation, no great nation has survived economically with a declining currency. And right now, in New York City, merchants are now taking euros instead of dollars.
What would you do about it?
Well, we're having a rally at 4 o'clock this afternoon near the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is a creation of the federal government, and it has created trillions of dollars over the last 10 years to help finance the government debt. So it's the debt problem, coupled with the ability of the Federal Reserve to create money literally out of thin air because it has an unlimited checking account. And so what you have is prices zooming up, the dollar declining, and businesses moving out of offshore. So we have all these things coming together in a perfect financial storm that if we don't address it, and nobody in the Congress is addressing it, that's what compelled me into this race. Why is anyone in the Congress talking about the steroids that the Federal Reserve creates instead of the steroids that Roger Clemens may or may not have taken?
Do you share his view?
Well, I'm sure I share some of the professor's views.
Match the words.
What do you think distinguishes you from Joe Pennacchio?
Well, I have a long track record of speaking out on these issues. Like I said, in the New York Times.
He doesn't?
Well, in 1976, I predicted this current mess that we're in. I said if we...
In 1976?
Yeah, absolutely. You can go check the New York Times, and it's on our website, murraysabrin.com. I wrote a piece in the New York Times criticizing the Federal Reserve's policies for giving us the booms and the busts, and we're now in one of the biggest busts in U.S. history, and it may be the biggest bust in U.S. history because of the manipulation of interest rates by the Federal Reserve. And so we love the boom because everyone is making money, everyone is happy.
Where should the interest rate be? It shouldn't be where it is right now?
No, the interest rate should be set by savers and borrowers in the marketplace. It's called the free market system. That's the way we should set interest rates instead of the Federal Reserve manipulating interest rates. When Alan Greenspan set rates at 1% in the early part of this decade, he set in motion the housing bubble, which has now crashed. Because what happened? Unsophisticated people went into the marketplace, borrowed money at teaser rates. Now they're being reset at higher rates and they're losing their homes. Now the federal government's thinking of buying 1 million homes. Where's the money going to come from? The federal government has a $400 billion deficit. So you can see, once you set into motion policies that are unsustainable and violate basic free market principles, you're going to get consequences that are very unhealthy for the economy.
What do you each think of the economic stimulus package that the president has pushed and is now law, and that's going to send a decent-sized rebate to many American taxpayers?
Well, what I've been arguing this, again, for a long time. We need to cut the size of the federal government. We need to eliminate agencies that don't provide any stimulus to the economy, that really are hindrances to the economy. As far as tax policy goes, given the people in the audience here and the people listening to the show, I would get rid of the corporate income tax and make all C corporations like S corporations. So the shareholders are responsible for the taxes, and you don't have this huge bureaucracy in Washington to handle the corporate income tax. Because, again, you have double taxation of dividends. Now, one thing that Bush did, which is great, was lower the tax on dividends to virtually zero. So that's a step in the right direction.
It's costing the government a lot of money to send these rebates back at a time when we're running red ink at the federal level anyway.
Well, we're doing what New Jersey has done for the past several years: give people rebates when when state government has.
But you're for the rebates? You're for the federal economic stimulus package?
I'm for lower tax rates. That's the best way to stimulate economic growth and development across the country.
Two of you. The first thing that pops into my mind is the war in Iraq, because I believe that you generally agree with John McCain and George Bush that we need to stay the course, and you, who supported Ron Paul in the U.S. In the Republican presidential primary, have been a sharp critic of the war. Am I right?
Well, I've said on September 12, 2001, I sent an email to my friends and past supporters saying we have to go after al-Qaeda. They're the ones that were responsible for this dastardly deed on September 11th. And so we should secure our borders, go after the people who perpetrated these deadly acts, and that would have been taken care of it. Instead, our borders are porous. Who knows who's come into the United States since September 11th. Our military is now engaged in a mission that we've been bogged down in for 5 years. If the goal was to get rid of Saddam Hussein, we won the war. He's gone, his sons are gone, his military command is gone, the Iraqi people have elected their own government. It's time for us to go home because we did what the mission was supposed to be, get rid of Saddam Hussein. Instead, we're doing things that are, I think, not in the strategic national interest of the American people, because we're spending a lot of money on overseas. That money needs to be spent to protect the 8,000 miles of borders that we have, north, south, east, and west. Instead, they're very porous. We have an illegal immigration problem that is causing huge tolls across the country. It's going to lead to a major humanitarian problem down the road, because you have babies born here of illegal immigrants. And so the question is, how do we handle this issue in a very humanitarian way? So again, public policy is driven not by what the long-term interests are, but what the politically correct or short-term interests are of politicians.
Has valuable seniority in the Senate. He has a reputation for bringing transportation dollars to New Jersey. Why should we replace that?
Well, Frank Lautenberg has been there for 24 years, and Joe and Ann and I agree, while he's been there, New Jersey's share of federal dollars has declined from 45th to 50th. So we're getting very few dollars from the federal government relative to the amount that we're sending in. In addition, he's been absent on the great fiscal financial issues of our time, the dollar, the deficit, tax rates. He's never introduced legislation, as far as I'm concerned, regarding the alternative minimum tax, which is really hurting middle-class families in the state of New Jersey. So it seems to me, if you want to be a leader in the Senate, you should look at these issues and say, what are the correct solutions? I haven't heard anything from Senator Lautenberg about what he thinks should be done, because, again, he was a successful businessman. That doesn't mean you're going to be a good legislator, because you need to understand these issues. And it seems to me that he doesn't understand these issues, because he would have said something about them in the 24 years he's been in the United States Senate.
Since 1972 that a Republican has won a U.S. Senate race in New Jersey. Clifford Case was the last one in 1972. The Democratic Party is very energized going into the 2008 election. Is this the year that Republicans can end that streak?
Well, the recent poll indicates that people want to replace Frank Lautenberg. And why do they want to replace Frank Lautenberg? Some people think it's his age. I'm not concerned about his age. I'm concerned about the age of his ideas. His ideas are based upon collectivism, as is the Democratic Party, top-down management of the economy. In fact, it's been mismanagement of the economy for decades. And so people are frustrated all over the state, all over this nation. I'm in touch with people all over the country. Doctors are opting out of the HMOs and other insured plans. They're going to cash-only practices where they're only accepting cash or credit card, which means they don't have to have a huge staff, and then they pass on their savings to their patients. So instead of paying $100 for a visit, they may only charge $75 or $60 for a visit. So again, the panacea in the 1970s with Ted Kennedy was HMOs were going to be the answer to health care cost containment. It hasn't worked out that way, because right now in America, more than 50% of health care is paid for by the government. And we know when the government gets involved in any activity, costs go up and quality goes down.
Is this the year for Republicans to break that long streak?
I think, Michael, I can reflect the voice of a lot of people in New Jersey that are just sick and tired of being told what they can't do and why they can't do it. Don't tell me that we can't close our borders. Don't tell me that we can't close them because it's politically incorrect, or worse yet, because it's a boom to the economy. Don't tell me that we can't find an alternative source of oil after we put a man on the moon and we transplanted a human heart. Don't tell me that we have to tax, borrow, and spend ourselves into prosperity. Don't tell me that. If you can't do it, step aside and give somebody with a Republican leadership message based on a principled message of low taxes, less government, peace and security through strength, and the encouragement of economic and personal freedoms. Give us the opportunity to do that. Message no different than John Kennedy's message. Message no different than Ronald Reagan's message.
Joe Pennacchio, Murray Sabrin. It went quickly. We're out of time. Thanks very much.
Pleasure, Mike.
We'll be back with another On the Record next week. John Corzine, the governor, will be our guest next week. That's next Sunday morning at 9 and 11, and Monday morning at 6:30. For more on New Jersey politics and government, you can catch Reporters Roundtable Sunday mornings at 10 and Friday nights at 6:30. Thanks to the Southern New Jersey Development Council for having us back here again this year, and thank you at home for watching.